Good afternoon and welcome to this, the last in our series of webinars for looking at the journey to unified communications. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Before we get stuck into the webinar itself, if you'd like to ask any questions along the way, if you'd like to pose them using the function on the screen, and we will answer questions at the end of the session. So as I say, this is the last in our current series of webinars. So far in the series we've looked at assessing the business value of Lync and unified communications, how important it is, how to measure it, and where it can really add value. We've also looked at the deployment options that you have with Microsoft Lync, then top tips on how to deploy it, before moving into things like the adoption strategies, supporting, and the value of moving beyond IM and presence with Microsoft Lync. So hopefully you've joined us in the past in some of those sessions, and if you haven't, they're all available on the website for on demand. And hopefully if you have joined us, you've found them very useful. Today's session, though, we're looking at, if you like, the last part of the journey to UC. So today is all about leveraging the potential of your investment in Microsoft Lync. To do that, we call it the art of the possible, and the session is very much a thought-provoking look at ideas to improve integrations, workflows, etc., to really take unified communications or Microsoft Lync to the next level. Your speakers today is James Rodd, who's the CEO of Modality and co-founder, and Tom Morgan, who's a senior development with the company, a lot of experience in developing software and working with various integrations packages. Tom will be carrying through, he won't get too technical, we've told him to keep it quite business-like, but Tom is also quite a regular and avid contributor to the UC community, so has a lot of experience on looking at customers' desires on how to extend things. So again, he brings great insight into the topic. So moving swiftly on, because you don't really want to hear any more from me, I'm going to hand over now to James and to start the topic of art of the possible. James, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ian, and good afternoon or good morning, everybody, depending on where you're joining us from. Just as we get going today, I think I wanted to just dive straight in and start talking about how the world itself is changing, and certainly there's a whole new range of buzzwords that have been slipping into this market. And once upon a time, being quite specialist in regards to artificial intelligence, as the second point on this slide refers to, that's becoming increasingly more part of day-to-day life. The second thing is the first point, which is really around this concept of the Internet of Things. IoT for short. It's a phrase and terminology that if you start searching around on the internet, you'll get lots of points of reference and key speakers. Microsoft at their recent worldwide conference at the beginning of this month, again, this was one of their top 5 things to consider for the immediate future. This is less something that's coming in the longer time frame. Some of the core messages that we'll talk about. Really looking at, access to knowledge, when and where we want, better acceptance of cloud, and the fact that mobility, the sheer range and choice of devices and access devices has gone through the roof. Mobile phones, smartphones, tablets, just general internet activity. The introduction of 4G means there's next to zero latency now, wherever you are, subject to coverage, of course. And then we drop into pretty much what technology has been doing all the time. I mean, technology is meant to break down new doors and break down boundaries, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It's taking what you can do in the case of this session with Microsoft Lync as a basic product, and then how you can build on that to become more and more appropriate to your environment and your businesses. So to back that up with some stats from the market, and this comes from I think it was Information Week just earlier this year. So pretty new data actually compared to some of what we've been recently referring to. And this slide has changed massively just in the last 12 months. We've called out for the biggest columns there because they no longer refer to just the technical benefits, deploying Lync as an alternative PBX solution or as a different conferencing bridge where there are some standalone business benefits. But we're moving to this next phase of investment in technology, and that's really to drive productivity. You'll have seen this from a lot of the key vendors in the space that have been coming to market with unified comms messages over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and they're all now transitioning into productivity. It's how you get the users more beneficial. And the reason why this slide is valid is because it's an external source. This is what organizations are telling the analysts and are telling the vendors and telling the market that they want from the systems. We also call out specifically the circle in red, which talks around about 19% of the business drivers on average refer to the ability to customize on the platform. Communications enable business process is a phrase and terminology that we'll come back to time and time again through today, but that's what it's all about. And if you can develop on the platform, then the solution becomes even more relevant and more to your business and your needs and your goals. It's not new, I think. This is a great statement that Gurdeep, who at the time was the VP of Lync within Microsoft back in 2010, was pretty much when Microsoft first started attending VoiceCon as a global conference. Since that statement was made, there have been huge quantities of solutions, custom requests, products hit the market that all use Lync as a platform to deliver it. But essentially, it's saying that the success of unified communications, now the success of productivity, and the bit that's really going to change the way you work and ultimately drive the benefit and get a much higher ROI and drive differentiation, is when you don't know it's there. So making the whole experience seamless from one application to another, from one business process to another, from one machine to another, and so on. So again, nothing new. So what we talk about today, this has all been tried, tested, and proven in the past. Top line, just before we hand over to Tom to go through some of the detail behind it, is around communications enable business processes. This is a recognized phrase across a number of different vendors ultimately, but actually in our industry and certainly within Microsoft, it's all about taking UC to the next level. I often coin the phrase that Microsoft are great at building software with 80% of the features for 80% of the users, in effect, for 80% of what the customer wants. So that leaves lots and lots of different pots of 20% that need to be improved, and that's what this is all about. And as I hand over to Tom, I'm going to get him to really touch on how we try and classify CVP applications and what we do by dropping them into 4 high-level categories. And then Tom's going to run through some real case examples and some discussions, and then a little bit of technical background. So thanks again. Hope that was useful. If you want any more details around the market, the data, the facts, and even reference points, please let us know. And Tom, over to you.
Great. Thanks, James. Hello, everybody. So the landscape, if you like, for Lync development and CVP applications, you can broadly split it into 4 key areas here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each one. I'm going to explain them a little bit further, show some scenarios, and that will kind of make the format for the next part of this session. As I do the scenarios, you'll almost certainly come up with some of your own as well, and that's great. And if you want to feed them back in the Q&A, that'd be interesting, or follow up afterwards or anything like that. I'm also going to try and keep it non-technical as much as I can, but might dive into a little bit at the end. Okay, so these are the 4 types of CVP applications. So enhancing communications is really people talking to people. It's taking existing communications and making them more productive, and making them easier and more natural, and it really helps drive adoption. There's machines talking to people, which is what we call reducing human latency, and it's using software sensibly and cleverly to proactively drive business processes. Customer self-service is the 3rd one, which is really people talking to machines. So these are solutions that bring the customer into your business process, so it helps them help themselves essentially. And finally, connected applications, machines talking to machines. These are scenarios that pull together the other 3, and where really the sum is greater than the parts. It's applications working together to provide value, to provide insight, all backed by a strong communication platform. Now, I said I wasn't going to go technical. I'm already about to go technical. All I want to say is that there are tools for each of these technology areas. Microsoft have different SDKs, different APIs for each of these to cover each of these different sort of scenarios. Okay, so let's start with enhancing communications. There's really two approaches to this. The first is to add Lync into your existing line of business software. For instance, if you've already got an internal CRM, instead of just having someone's name against an order record or something like that, you can drop in a Lync contact card. Suddenly you're adding Lync into people's familiar tools that they use every day. You're making it easier for them to communicate, and you're really just enhancing communication across your company. And that's a really quick win you can use for your existing software. The other approach is to do it the other way around and to take Lync and add your business processes into it. You can do that in different ways. You can present data within the Lync client, either just in text in IM. You can also add contextual data and show it within the Lync client. Just for more information, what you're really doing is adding context to conversations that are happening. And those contextual windows can also communicate with back-end services, back-end data as well. There's a special sort of application as well in this category, and that's full screen applications, which we'll come to in a minute. What I want to look at first are some of the scenarios in which you can use these sorts of applications. So integrating with line of business applications, I already mentioned. There's lots of different things you can start to think about. I've pulled some out there. For instance, let's say you might have a firm of solicitors who take calls all day. At the end of the call, maybe they want to be able to just automatically bill a particular customer because they bill on time. So they want something contextual to the conversation, just to say, this was the client, this was the job, take the length of the call and bill it accordingly. And that's just a particular scenario. And there's others as well. The one on the end there, communication of missed calls, missed IMs. That's actually a product that we've turned in, an idea that we've turned into a product called Supertoast. So, as I said earlier, full screen applications are a particularly special type of application because they use the Lync client, but you never see the Lync client. It's a way of replacing it to really give these immersive, intuitive full screen experiences, and that makes them a really good fit for kiosks and for touchscreen apps. And there's other things as well, unattended receptions, office portals. So the development team, a modality is located differently geographically separate from the rest of the company, and we use an office portal to really kind of stay as if we're with the rest of the team. All it is, it's a Lync client, it's full screen. We've written our own application. It auto answers and it auto video upscales to video. So at any time we can almost get a window into the main office whenever we want, and that's really helped just kind of break down those barriers. Okay. The next type of application, the reducing human latency. These types of applications, this is the people talking to machines, and it's a little harder to visualize, but it can produce some of the most kind of powerful solutions, really. The best way to think of it is a back-end application, a sort of kind of a server application, but one that's Lync aware. It's like a Lync robot or a Lync application. And these applications can show up in your contact list and you can interact with them. But what you're doing in the background is interacting with an application or a system or a set of data or a process. Because of that, they can be hooked up to external data, they can interact with back-end systems. And that does two things. For a start, it really breaks down those kind of traditional barriers around the organization, because suddenly your information is available wherever Lync is, and Lync's got much better reach than a lot of your legacy applications. So it's a really good way of getting access to that data, making it easy to use. as well. So there's 1,000,001 scenarios for this. There's just a few of them there. Real-time translation is an interesting one. So if I wanted to talk to you and I only speak French and you only speak English, well, we can do that via an application which does the translation for us and then sends the messages on. And then when you reply, it comes back again, via the application which does the translation back to me. Something very similar is coming to Skype soon, I believe. So that's one particular scenario. IVRs are another obvious kind of solution, but you can have almost IVRs on steroids because you don't have to have just the standard press 1, press 2, press 3. Because it's an application, it's a standard Windows application, because it has access to back-end data, there's no reason why you can't say, now type in your order number, and then the application can go and look up the order and come back to you and say, yeah, we shipped it yesterday. Do you still want to talk to someone? So you're really driving some really interesting scenarios. Okay. The third type is the customer self-service. Now, what this really means is web-based interactions. It's based on the same technology that Lync web app is based on. That means it's predominantly for the web, although it does work anywhere where there's internet. So if you want to Lync enable your washing machine, you can do. It doesn't have to have a full web browser. Anywhere you can get an internet connection, it will work. But it is predominantly for those scenarios where customers don't have Lync. Today, this technology is good for instant messaging and presence. It doesn't do voice and video. Now, at the Lync conference this year, Gurdeep did say that voice and video is coming soon. It's coming at the end of this year, the beginning of next year, and that will obviously open up a number of different scenarios. It's going to be delivered something called UCJAR or J-Link, which you may have heard of. So yeah, we kind of eagerly await that. But at the moment, there's a number of interesting scenarios you can do, even with just instant messaging and presence within the browser. So again, there's a number of different scenarios. Integration with mobile apps is a really key one, and it's not just mobile apps. It's integration with anything that has a web connection that can use the internet. Obviously, customer service web pages, the web chat feature, anything like that is an obvious kind of fit. If you've got internal web pages and you can bring the presence of your existing Lync users into those intranet pages, and then another possible scenario, something like a real-time floor plan built into an intranet page. Again, there's lots of different scenarios. These are just a few that I've kind of pulled together. It's one of those things where as soon as you start to think about your own business and your own business processes, you really start to think of different things, and you know the challenges in your own business, and you know where the pain points are. Okay. Connected applications is the fourth type, and this is, as much as anything else, bringing together all the other three. So where we are at the moment is moving to a world of universal communications as well as unified communications. We've all got millions of devices that are telling us lots of different pieces of information, but it's not really enough anymore for all these devices to be telling us something. The next stage really is that they start telling each other that information, and then working together, becoming context aware, being able to make those kind of decisions and really drive value through aggregated information. Where does Lync come into this? Well, we think Lync is a really important part of this because it's how we end up communicating with those devices. Lync becomes the communication platform to the humans, if you like. and is all about, the important part is the people and the human collaboration and communication, and anything we can do to bring some context to those communications and delivering information in the right place and at the right time will only kind of add value. So an example of that, so we have an application called Alert Me. It's a corporate announcement tool. It delivers announcements within an organisation about whatever that might be, you know, an update from the CEO, information about some maintenance on the third floor or whatever. But the way it doesn't just kind of deliver it in the way that email does, it's aware of the presence of the users it's sending them to. So for each of the users it needs to tell the alert to, it's monitoring their presence, and it knows when they're available and when they're busy. So it won't try and tell them when they're busy, it will wait until they're available. So that's just kind of one example of just bringing context to conversations, being smart about when information gets delivered. And we think this is this plays really well into the Internet of Things and into artificial intelligence, where you've got lots of connected devices all together in a kind of mobile first, cloud first world. There's a million and one things customers can do with Lync, when Lync is that communication platform for those devices. Again, just a few scenarios. Location aware alerts. So everybody at the moment carries around GPS devices with them, and at the moment they're not kind of linked up. But imagine if you're running a bit late for a meeting and you think, oh no, I'm not going to make the meeting by the start. Should I send an email? Should I run? Should I not stop for a coffee? Whatever. If you can pull out your phone and find out that actually all the other people in the meeting aren't even in the meeting room yet, and you're not going to be the last guy there, well, actually maybe I'll just carry on walking. Maybe I will stop for a coffee. That's just kind of one simple example, but there's so many different scenarios. You could, I don't know, integrate with legacy systems, and then say about holiday requests and everything like that suddenly become much easier when it's all done through your mobile. Disaster recovery is a kind of really interesting situation where you've got lots of devices who know the presence of who's in what area of the building and who's in the building, who's not, who's logged into Lync and who isn't. So you can have really kind of tailored DR plans. And by hosting a lot of this information, by hosting these applications in the cloud, it means that they're available anywhere, they work anywhere, they'll work on mobiles, and it really enables some real collaboration wherever it is those users are. Okay, so what I want to do is try and bring all of this together in a worked example. So the example is a customer care center, where the requirement is that the user wants to make contact with a customer care agent via their website, and the customer care company use Lync, but obviously the customer doesn't have Lync. There's no kind of expectation on that. So and also that the customer might have particular requirements, and so will want their request routed based on a particular set of skills. So working from left to right then, the kind of process from a business perspective is that the user can go to a web page, and they can initiate a request for help via that web page. So they can start a web chat conversation. It's all done in the browser. There's no requirement for them to have Lync or anything special. They can open that and ask their question. What then happens is that request hits a back-end server. So that's looking at now we're kind of talking, we've kind of already touched on connected applications there, and customer self-service. We're also touching into kind of reducing human latency. We're making people talk to machines. So rather than going directly to a person, it's going through to an application. But what the application is going to do is just look at all the agents and work out who's available and who's busy, who's on the phone, who isn't, who's got the particular skill set that's required. and it's then going to route the call to the most appropriate agent at that particular time. When that agent accepts the call, the agent will also be shown some contextual information. So depending on the kind of scenario, it could be information about the user. If you're kind of logged in, then the context might be, your account, your details, your outstanding orders, anything like that. It could be as simple as, this is where I was on the web page when I decided to ask you for some help. But it's really framing that conversation with the right context so that the agent has something to go on to begin the conversation. Because it's all being managed and driven, if you like, by this back-end application, all the information about the routing and the call and the agent and stuff, it's all being driven back to a database. So it enables some really good reporting, some auditing, and all that kind of good stuff. From a technical perspective, what's actually kind of happening from left to right is the web chat pop-up side is pure HTML, CSS. There's no kind of requirements for anything special on the front end. As it goes through the back end there, that's a UCMA application. So UCMA is a technology that it's a Microsoft SDK designed for building these back end managed applications. That's responsible then for routing to particular agents. The agents themselves just have normal link clients. The only thing that's special about them is that the context there, the contextual content, is delivered via a CWE, which is done using the Lync client SDK. So there's another SDK involved in showing the context there. And then reporting can be back-end SQL, it can be in-house, it can be whatever your reporting requirements are. And then the front end can either be UCWA. So UCWA is the Unified Communications Web API. It's Microsoft's way of enabling Lync on the web, and it's that Goody announced will be fleshed out, if you like, with UCJAR and JLink towards the end of the year, beginning of next year. And so we'll see some interesting scenarios where voice and video becomes an option in that sort of space as well. If this sounds like a lot of setup and a lot of work, there are different options to delivery. So I said before, it's everything's kind of mobile first, cloud first, and that extends to these sort of solutions as well. This whole solution can be delivered as a cloud-based offering. Again, working from left to right, there's an option here that wasn't in the last slide, which was Skype integration. So Skype to Lync integration for voice is a thing. It's something we support. It's obviously the Skype part of it is all delivered in the public cloud. So users just have a Skype contact that they can call. The back end, the UCMA application, so we have something we've developed, a solution. It's called Help Me that does this kind of routing, but crucially we can host it as well. So we have our own cloud hosting platform called linkme.net, where we can host those applications for you if you don't want to go through that process of hosting them yourself. And I can also be responsible for hosting CWEs as well. And then your users themselves can be Office 365 users if you don't want that hassle of managing Lync infrastructure, or they can be a mix of both, so that you can kind of support your users wherever they are, around the world. And just because this is a slightly different worked example where the call started with Skype, it ends also with a voice call rather than an IM conversation, and that extends to mobile as well. So your agents can be mobile users; they can be anywhere. So this whole solution is a good example of using lots of different applications together, using lots of different technologies together. and delivering those kind of throughout the cloud, as well as you know, as an on-premise solution, which gives you really kind of good flexibility, really, as to what's happening next. Okay, I'm going to pass over to Ian, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, either one, James, or we could fight for this one if you wanted to. It's unclosed out, but I think it's James again here just for a second, just because I think Ian's had a few more questions than we used to actually just pop through off the back of this. So we will pause for a second. The slide up's just reference points. You know, it's nice for people to know that we are speaking from a position of experience, having done this for an awful lot of people. The most relevant kind of stat I'll say there is that more than 15% of our customers, which are organisations that have adopted and deployed Lync, have taken applications and development services. So it's and that's been an increasing slant over the last few years. So in parallel with the market positioning slide we saw earlier from Information Weekly, you know, we have actual first-hand experience of it becoming more and more relevant. That's the last from my side. I think Ian, you wanted to pick up at this point and field a couple of questions.
Absolutely, thank you, James. Yeah, and I think that's a relevant point you make there, in the fact that we are seeing more and more people, as the Lync implementations become more mature and they've had the experience, they're actually thinking a little bit more outside the box of what else they can do with it and how else they can leverage it. So we're seeing more and more people coming back with ideas and looking at helping how they take it to that next step. Yes, we've had some great questions in actually, so hence why Tom's probably cut it a little bit shorter than we normally would, because we wanted to get some of these questions in now. The first question I've got here, and I'm going to throw to both of you really, is how do you get started, or what should we consider?
Okay.
Which I think is a pretty good starting point, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's lots of different places you can start with this. You can start really small and work your way up, or if you know that there's something particular you want to solve, you can kind of jump right in. There are packaged products, pre-written, generic products to solve particular business process problems. And that makes it very easy to get started with them. Obviously, Modality sell a range of the Lync suite of applications as packaged solutions, and they're good because they solve very specific problems where we've identified a business need. So that's kind of where you can start. Moving up slightly is kind of API integration layer. So we offer APIs so that if you're building in-house solutions and you want to add Lync in, or you want to make it easier to interact with Lync for things like presence or sending messages or anything like that, and you want to do that via web pages internally or into your existing applications, then that's a way forward as well. And then all the way up to development service solutions, where we can come and look at your requirements and then build something that's sort of specific to your needs. And really where you go from there is fairly unlimited. It's your business. You know the challenges, the pain points, where Lync can probably add value. So
yeah, thanks, Tom. It's James as well. I think there's almost a layer above that, and we see this happen quite a lot, is where do you start? And a lot of people don't quite know sometimes how they could use Lync in their organizations and in their own processes and practices. I'm not sure if it's a giveaway or an offer. I know occasionally we do throw some offers in at the end of these webinars, but normally we would turn around and say, hey, we run an Art of the Possible workshop for organizations. It's where we come in, we could give a lot more specific, detailed examples of what other people have done, other code that we have, but it's all targeted at your environment. So if any of this has even slightly resonated within your own environment and you want to explore it further, I'm sure if you contact us, say you're on the webinar, we can free up some of Tom or perhaps one of his colleagues' times to come in, sit down with you for a few hours and really talk it through and just see what the art of the possible is for your environment. So two ends of the scale there.
Well, I didn't have much to contribute to this webinar, but James is already seeing one of my points there at the end. Yes, there is an offer for anybody who's registered or attended this session. There is a workshop that we're happy to come and do on your site, looking at your specific requirements.
It's almost planned then, sorry.
Yes, absolutely. Perhaps we should have spoken before.
What a good offer, Ian. Well done. I thought of that myself.
The one quick point I wanted to just pick up, Tom, that there's been a couple of acronyms that we've thrown in during this session, and I just want to make sure, particularly when you've got people like me on there who aren't technical, that we understand what they are. And the two that kind of spring to mind is the API and the CWE. Can you just tell us roughly what they are?
Sure. An API it's development speak. It's not Lync specific as such. It's an application programming interface. It's really a set of code that a company will release for integration with their product. And the great thing about Lync is that there's lots of these for Lync. The great thing and the bad thing. The great thing about it is that there's lots of different APIs for Lync, which means that you can write applications that do lots of different things with Lync and interact with Lync, make your applications do things with Lync in different ways. I guess the bad thing is that because there's so many, it's hard to know which ones to choose in any particular scenario, but then we can always help with that. So that's APIs. CWE is conversation window extension. Now, if you look at your Lync client, if you're in a conversation with your Lync client, a conversation window extension will open out on the right-hand side of that conversation and give us a window in which to add contextual information into that conversation. So if you're in a CRM, internal, customer relation database or something, and you have embedded like a click to call button with Lync, so you find your manager there and you double click it to start a conversation with them. What we can write is, or what we can do is, when your manager accepts the conversation, we can open a CWE in that conversation so that your manager can then see which part of the CRM software you were looking at. He then knows what it is you're then talking to him about.
Yeah, in essence, it gives that a bit more Lync client screen real estate. Opens up a bit more space, so that the general relevance of having an IM conversation with somebody who's available can be extended to look at extra content. And CWE is a standard Microsoft feature. It's part of the Lync client, and it's just something we enable to drop some clever data to. I know we have some videos available up on YouTube and click through from our website that give you 3 or 4 different examples there of the sort of content you can present in those windows.
Brilliant. Well, that kind of leads us actually into the next question, or the next logical question, which is what is available today, and can you give some examples?
Okay, so yes, so if you want some examples of products that are available today, I'd say the best one to start with is a product we do called Supertaste, and it's the best because you can try it for free. So what it really falls under the enhancing communication section, that kind of people to people. It's definitely worth a try because it's much harder to explain it than to see it, but it's based on the premise that when you receive incoming IM messages, those kind of pop-ups that we call toasts, if you don't see it within kind of 30 seconds, it disappears and it's not immediately obvious that you've missed a conversation there. What Supertaste will do is show a big kind of banner right in the middle of the screen all the time until you go back to that conversation, so you can then click Supertaste to go back to the conversation. It means that you're much less likely to miss those IMs and those conversations. So yes, you can get hold of that from our website for free and try it out. And that's a really good example of a desktop application. Technically, that's using the Lync client SDK. If you want a kind of a steer for which SDK goes with which type of application, that's using that.
I think if I pick up this, it's probably worth categorizing some of what's available today into 3 primary groups. We've mentioned Supertoast, which sits there as an off-the-shelf product, in effect, something that's complete. The middle ground is some of the tools, and then the third stack is around custom development work. So general products that are available off the shelf. We have things like Supertoast. We have our Lync Me platform, Lync Me as it sounds, again accessible via the web. There are 4 products that sit as a subcategory that deliver, use Lync as a platform and presence as the trigger to deliver training content, surveys and corporate announcements. So the ability to use the CWE space we talked about earlier, that extra bit of Lync client real estate to deliver more context in regards to training, surveys and corporate announcements. The fourth one in the stack, I think we actually referenced in a couple of the diagrams around Help Me, which is either inbound or web accessed, light forms of a contact center, the ability to IM for help, go and find an available and relevant agent, and then use Lync features to escalate through the application to service that query. The tools that sit beyond that, as a next layer, there's some conference submission tools. So in perhaps a deployment program whereby you're rolling out Lync Enterprise Voice and Lync Conferencing, and you're slowly migrating away from legacy PBXs or perhaps third-party conference services. It's a clever way of recognizing who the conference organizer is. Doing away with lots and lots of PIN numbers and dialing keys and codes. It's automated tooling to make the adoption and rollout of Lync even better. Fully available. Similarly, an annotation solution for that. And then when we get into the art of the possible, truly around customized services, we have a lot of what we call platform code. It's solutions that we built a number of times over, and we try and take a common denominator layer across the platform code, and then work with each organization to add to that to deliver specific solutions for a particular vertical, for a particular organization, and just ripping that down in a lot of detail. Okay, so slightly long answer there, but I hope that worked.
Excellent, thank you very much. Question kind of leading on from that a little bit is, you mentioned, hang on, let me read this correctly. You mentioned about web interface. Do you do something like a web chat?
So we do web chat. So I'm not sure what time during the presentation the question came in. It may possibly have preempted the slide with the last couple of slides, but we do a web chat solution that is based on just web HTML, CSS technologies, but can route through, find an agent based on skill and availability, and connect them. In terms of other web technologies, we also do web APIs for really interacting with Lync. So if you want to write something on an internal web page, probably, but just using web API technology, because that's what you're comfortable with, you just want a REST-based API, but you want to do presence checking, or you want to send an IM or anything like that, we have APIs to help with that as well. So hopefully that answers the question. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I mean, if there's any more information required, then please reach out to us separately. Next question, I think you mentioned in your presentation, Tom, about floor plans, because the question is, why would I integrate with floor plans?
So why would you integrate with floor plans? Good question. So a lot of larger companies, this is kind of feedback from talking to kind of like large companies that do a lot of hot desking, and on any particular day, somebody may be working from home, they may be in an office but at a hot desk, or they could be somewhere else entirely. And in large organizations, it's becoming frighteningly easy to lose somebody, or at least not know where to find them. And with hot desks, what's often the case is there's a bank of hot desks, but you don't know who's at the hot desks and if there's any free until you get there. So a particular kind of scenario where Lync can help with that is there's various different technologies based on knowing the location of users based on where they are in the network. So if you log into Lync on a particular network port, then we know, or Lync rather, can know where you are, if that makes sense, and that can be tied into a particular place on the floor plan. So you can imagine a floor plan on the wall that listed all the hot desks and then showed which ones were free, which ones were available. Maybe it gave you some guidance about where your closest free hot desk is, and also some kind of employee lookup, maybe in a kind of reception area, or in the front of the office, something like that, where you can look up a person and find out whereabouts they're logged into Lync at that time. And that might be in a meeting room, it might be on a hot desk, or it might be in an office somewhere. So that's kind of what I meant by that kind of floor plan thing. So
I think if I can just extend upon that a little bit more, Tom, just to throw in a couple of live customer requirements that have come in. I mean, one of them is very much based around health and safety and security type measure, where a large office block, the security have to know beyond 6 o'clock what time or who's still in the building. And of course, with the only other option they've really got is actually wander around the building and find out. So they're looking at a floor plan with presence integrated in, with a click to dial on the presence dots on the floor plan, so that they can see at any one time who's still left in the building and make the contact from there. So that has a health and safety and a security element to it. Yeah. And I think the other one which comes in and is probably not that uncommon is looking at the availability of meeting rooms in environments where there are a lot of meeting rooms. So being able to have a quick look to see which rooms are booked out and which rooms aren't, so the availability in those rooms. So again, that kind of integration of bringing presence through into a floor plan. So just to give some live examples.
Actually, it brings it back around to the whole the Internet of Things and connected devices as well. You can imagine it might be really useful that if the fire alarm went off, the printer in the security office automatically printed a list of everyone who was logged in to Lync, because that's a very quick. It's not conclusive, but it's as a first glance, it's a fairly good indication of who's in the building. So. Yeah.
Excellent. The last question I've got at the moment, it concerns Alert Me, which I think has been mentioned a couple of times, so the corporate announcement tool. The question has come in, can you tell me a bit more about it and where it's used? Now, that might be that we have to take that one a little bit offline, but could you, is there more we can elaborate on?
We can try, yes. I would certainly point people at the very least, the video of the product that's available via the web. Alert Me has got a bit of common code with the other two products that have been mentioned, Train Me and Survey Me. One part of that is using presence as the trigger. Code name, the Office NAG when we first developed it, but essentially you take a particular piece of workflow and that's the alert bit, and then the Me piece, that refers to specific individuals, but when they're available. So when you're trying to issue company information, company data, corporate announcements, or general alerts, don't confuse Alert Me with an IT related alert. This is very much aimed at business process as well. So we take the NAG Me bit, which looks to see when somebody's available based on their Lync presence, and when they are, that's when the trigger goes, and the system, the bot, the bit of automatic intelligence says, now send that person the data. So that's one part of it, is recognizing when to send somebody some information. The alert bit expands out into what sort of information you might want to send those users. So again, using the CWE, this extra screen real estate you get with Lync as the space to present the information, you can put static text, HTML text in terms of nice logo branded news bulletins. You can have hyperlinks to connect people out to web pages where there might be a bit of external news, or indeed you can record or publish your own videos. Or interesting, we did a demonstration recently for part of the military, where we referred to a BBC video that was a reenactment of the Normandy landings. So yeah, video real estate, static content, and hyperlinks. in terms of how you deliver it, which is all nice, very clean way of doing so, and all using Lync. So premise is, you see they're available, you send them the information, and then you show it to them all in the same client. Clever bit at the back end is the tooling and reporting that sits behind it. So you can schedule in advance when you want to send out that piece of information. You can prioritize it as urgent or important. You can also select the need for the person receiving the content to accept and acknowledge that they have read and understood the message that's been sent to them. If I try and say much more than that, it'll probably it's probably quicker to come and see you in person wherever you are. But it is a great tool. It's been used. Probably top 2 or 3 examples I could give. There's a bank in North America that use it to distribute internal corporate messages from tiering down the layers. So it hooks into Active Directory, and you take senior leaders dropping relevant corporate messages to the next 2 tiers of direct reports, and then ultimately it filters down to hitting around about 16,000 users. Second one is a large pharmaceutical company that uses it to hit about 8,000 field salespeople with new product bulletins and new information and new data that gets rolled out. And then another firm based out of the UK uses it to quite simply just make very simple announcements to the business. The lowest level of importance, I believe, although some would disagree, is that the sandwich van is here. It gives them a half an hour window to hit people. They upgraded their infrastructure away from Lync away from a PBX to a Lync platform, which they also decided to replace their PA system throughout the building and use Lync as a notification for it as well. And because you can have an expiry date on the message, it's not something that gets backed up. It's a relevant message for half an hour. So if you're on Lync at that point in time and you want to know, chances are you'll get the message. And if you're not there and you're not on Lync, you don't get the message. It's quite simple.
Well, of course, unless you escalate it if it's a critical message to email.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So that little one in there.
Well, if you want to, yes. Yeah. So I mean, we could carry on going for a while, but it's a very powerful tool, either for very simple tasks, but it scales very well up to the very, very complicated and the very large. We have these applications running in organizations with in excess of 50,000 people, 50,000 AD accounts as well. So it's very, it scales well, accessible via the cloud, as we mentioned before. And you're just relying on having Lync, IM and presence and federation in that case. But it's not a case of saying you have to do absolutely everything with Lync. You can get benefit out of just deploying Lync, IM and presence, or just rolling out Office 365 to the whole organization.
Brilliant. Thank you, James and Tom. I think that's been hopefully informative to our audience out there today. There aren't any more questions, and we're getting close now to the time, so I will wrap up. We're interested, if there's anything that's sort of triggered interest or stimulated your taste buds in today's session. As James has alluded to earlier, we are offering you the chance for us to come and do a workshop with you to explore ideas further. So please just contact us out. We'll be in touch giving you that offer after the session. We're also very keen to get your feedback on today's session and any in the series actually, and also ideas on what else you'd like to hear about. We've already had some great feedback, and this is looking towards the next series that we'll probably plan in the fall, or the autumn, I should say. And some of the things that have come through as the early leaders are Skype, applications for Lync, Office 365, more on adoption strategies. That's certainly been a very popular topic, and more tips and best practices. So if you've got any thoughts or feedback, or there's anything else you'd like to hear about, please let us know. One final thing that I'd like to just mention as well is if you'd like to trial things like Alert Me or Train Me or Survey Me, we do offer trial accounts for these applications. So if again, they've stimulated your interest, then please contact us and we can get something set up for you so you can actually have a play with these firsthand to see what they can do. On that note, that pretty much brings us to a conclusion. If you'd like to re-listen to this session or any of the other webinars in the series, please go, they're all available on demand on the website. So please go and have a contact there, or follow us on the normal sort of Facebook and Twitter or LinkedIn. or just get in touch with us via email, and we will pick it up further. It just remains again, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your contribution today. Thank you for everybody to tuning in, and I hope you found this and the whole series of interest. Thank you.